Focusing on protecting the local ecology, the Xiongan New Economic Zone is intended to be a leader in green development. In what ways could the new area become a model for China's sustainable growth? There are many problems waiting ahead for the 3 counties of mostly farmland. How can the balance be found between protecting natural resources and solving infrastructure problems? It is said that Xiongan will be China's next Silicon Valley, targeting high technology and high-end services. Many state-owned enterprises are also planning to move into this area. Will it be a new driver for China's economy? With global vision, international standards, Chinese characteristics and high goals as key words, how can the region be made a demonstration area for innovative development? And how can it expand the opening to the rest of the world and build a new platform for development?
After a series of regulations suspending real estate transactions and new permanent residential permits, or hukous, the public is paying more attention to the future development of the Xiongan New Area. In support of the plan, more than 30 central state-owned enterprises are now preparing to move. Given the geological advantages and the strong resource capacity of the site, the Xiongan New Area is considered to have the potential to reach new standards of development. Today, to discuss the green development and innovative development of this new economic area, I'm very happy to be joined by the chair of the China Redesign Hub, Wu Changhua. In the second half, when we come back, we'll be joined by President of the Center for China and Globalization, or CCG, Henry Wang Huiyao. That's our topic. This is a dialogue. I'm Yang Ray. Changhua, public opinions are quite divided over why ecological system in Xiongan is a liability for the prospects of having yet another special economic zone. What's your take?
It is, to a certain extent, because partly the region is already ecologically very vulnerable and environmentally very significant. If you look at the water quality in the Boyangdian Lake, the runoff discharges from surrounding areas is already polluting the water quality in the lake. And if you look at the water scarcity, because of the long time over withdrawal of the groundwater, so water scarcity is another challenge. And the region is also really located at the air pollution sort of region in China, in the northern part of China. And if you look at biodiversity, even though we have the largest wetlands in the northern part of China, but somehow because we have this sort of reservoirs upstream, downstream, by segmenting the ecosystem in the region, so biodiversity has been decreasing very, very fast. So to a large extent, yes, it's already liability. For any new development, we have to take into consideration of the ecological environmental impact. If it's done well, that could be turned into an opportunity, but if not, definitely it's already a liability on the table.
But I'm afraid the decision makers are well aware of the risks and the vulnerability in developing the Xiongan New Area. However, President Xi Jinping seems to be determined to have the avowed goal of green development. What do you think are the broad implications, for example, in navigating a course of sustainable development, taking Xiongan as an example?
I think green is definitely the term of our time.
It's politically correct, of course.
Politically correct, but also actually from practice perspective, is already sort of the journey or revolution is already on the track. There are a few ways of looking at it. So one, we have to understand really well the ecological boundary. I mentioned the ecological vulnerability of the region. If we do not understand the boundary, the red line of the region, we cannot possibly do the correct thing. On the other side, actually, for any relocation of industries or new industry developments, whatever the sectors that are going to be located out in the region, we have to make sure they do not add any negative environmental impact actually to this region. For instance, emissions discharges. To a certain extent, we have to look into the zero targets and to make sure, we do not make the situation worse. We have to figure out by applying the new technologies or solutions and by having more restrictive laws, regulations to make sure ecologically it's a very sound region. So green for this particular region has to be the color and also the content, the nature of the development in the region. I think part of the political agenda is, so now we talk about ecological civilization, globally we talk about a sustainable development, but at the regional level, this is a showcase time or test bed to make sure we integrate all the solutions together. We really make it happen, make it a reality. The popular word is say green is gold. This could be an opportunity to make that happen.
A victim of a very severe air pollution, if you look at the neighboring provinces like Hebei, where you have hundreds of small and medium-sized factories that deliver a lot of the industrial pollution, Beijing is determined to use the pilot program of Xiongan to ease the environmental decline. Now, do you think this goal is realistic?
It is. It is to a certain extent in a way. If we really want to do it, I think that's possible today. If you look at the technologies today, there's so much innovation around in this country and also around the world. So from technology perspective, now we're equipped with the capacity to do so. So even for SMEs, somehow either you phase them out or install the technology, advanced technologies to turn them into something more ecologically environmental friendly. I think it's possible. From the policy perspective, we set laws, regulations, targets which are really, really restrictive. So they're already driving actually the transformation on the ground. So industries today, if they do not change, they have to die out. If we want to continue to be part of the market, they have to transform. And the policy incentives already on the table to make sure all the industries have to shift towards the green direction.
When the labor-intensive manufacturing industry has to be restructured to fine-tune and to make it environmentally friendly, it's more of an issue about employment. With the massive bankruptcy of those small and medium-sized enterprises, particularly in the three northern provinces, Heilongjiang, Jilin, Liaoning province, it's a political issue, more or less. If we go back to what happened prior to the opening of the Lianghui period, the annual political season, 3 vice governors of Hebei province resigned, and there were a lot of speculations as to why they resigned simultaneously. One of the major reasons behind the public rumors is that they had to be held to the account about the environmental decline.
Quality. Yeah.
I said earlier, Beijing has been a victim of air pollution, the hazardous fog, for example. So when you decided to close the heavily polluting small and medium-sized guolu, which depend on the consumption of a fossil fuel, it's more or less a political issue. Do you think politicians are well prepared?
I think they have to. Today, actually, the bigger context, the public, the society cannot tolerate the deteriorating of or worsening of the environmental quality anymore. Health becomes more important probably than any other goals or objectives. So the society cares about it, and the laws and regulations are moving towards the right direction. You mentioned Beijing is more like the victim, but if you look at history, Beijing cannot just say, I'm a victim, but rather there were a lot of industries actually originally located in Beijing. They've been relocated to Hebei, surrounding regions. So to a certain extent, Beijing cannot say, I do not have the responsibility. I'm a victim. You guys have to deal with whatever you have to. I'm just waiting here. But rather, Beijing has to take on or shoulder the responsibility and working closely with surrounding, particularly in Hebei province, to make sure we have the expertise, we have the technology, the resources. How do we make sure the resources, expertise will be utilized to the fullest scale possible to transform the industries there? By saying that, I have to admit, it is a painful process. I think this transition period is not really sort of winner for everyone. Industrialized countries went through the similar stages already, centuries before, and also now today, China has to go through that as well. But I believe actually, because the government decision-making process in China really pays attention to the jobs creation, as you said, this is a political issue. I think the resources, the mindset together, we will be able to address this in a sort of much less dramatized sort of way. But as I said, I have to admit, there are going to be losses, there will be losers, but somehow we have to make this happen towards the right direction.
Decades ago, since the founding of the PRC, we had some vast lake areas like Poyanghu and Dianchi in Kunming, Yunnan province could also be yet another embarrassing example in examining the ecological decline. Do you believe the construction of a Xiongan New Area will help improve the whole area of Huabei, eastern China. Because ecological impact could also draw lessons from the construction of the Three Gorges Dam. A lot of the activists in environmental protection accused the Chinese authorities years ago of building the Sanxia, the Three Gorges Dam. Now, what lessons can we draw?
I think compared to when the Three Gorges was decided to go ahead to build, and today, it's a very different time, even though just a few decades actually. So today, we stand at a sort of front line in terms of, we have the awareness, you have the public outcry for much improved environmental quality. Politically, the will is already on the table. So there are things like, I'm optimistic overall. I think actually we do have an opportunity on the table here today. So Xiongan New Area could set more ambitious targets. For instance, we can set zero emissions, zero negative environmental impacts. If you look at the infrastructure, make sure the infrastructure has to be built, sort of look at the materials, look at transportation, buildings, whatever, they have to be green or sustainable. If you look at the industries that are going to be relocated here to this region, there should not be any polluting environment, industries to be relocated here at all, but rather to look at more expert intellectual, universities, R&D centers, innovation centers, whatever. So only by doing so, I think we'll be able to prevent the mistakes we made before, but rather looking at it today and also looking into the future, there's a huge opportunity here in Xiongan if we really want to make it happen.
At the same time, as the second biggest economy, China has paid its price for the rapid economic expansion. During the dry season, the 3,000 square kilometers of one of the biggest freshwater lake, Baiyangdian, could shrink to just a few square kilometers. I mean, much of the submerged area would shrink rapidly. Well, with that, we come to the end of the first part of the program, focusing on ecological protection if we are to build Xiongan New Area. When we come back, we'll look at the Industrial Revolution and why up to 30 central SOE decided to relocate their headquarters from Beijing to Xiongan. Stay with us. Welcome back. We are very happy to be joined here in the second half by Henry Wang Huiyao, head of the CCG or think tank, Center in China Globalization. Welcome to Dialogue.
Thank you.
According to the circular from the central authorities, this new area will help phase out functions from Beijing that are not directly related to the capital city to explore a new model of optimized development in densely populated areas and restructure the urban layout in Beijing, Tianjin, Hebei province. So how will the non-capital functions help the development of new economic area? Henry?
Yeah, I think that's really, I think a new strategy for China, because China has been quite successful in the last number of years. I mean, for example, they have established the Shenzhen, which originally just a fishing village, now become a 20 million population city. And then that's in the 80s for the manufacturing hub of China. And then we have the 90s of this Pudong, which now become a financial hub. So in the 21st century, I think Beijing, Tianjin, and Hebei, the three big area that they want to really have a have a kind of a connectivity of together. But then there's no platform of that. So I think by building a Xiongan new district, which is serving a very good linkage and also a connecting place for those three areas. So that actually served the problem of Beijing, because it's too swollen and there's a lot of industrial output here and then facilities here. So that by having this new facility in Xiongan, that can solve some of those problems. And also, more important, I think China, probably one of the biggest strength of China is that the government has mobilization ability is very strong. So by having a government really design that designate that place, as long as we have as we just heard in your properly debated, properly feasibility study, and properly articulated on this, it will be really a good strategy, because then the efficiency of that, and also by having all the state enterprises follow the order on that, and I think also play the market forces, and with the new standards that you can draw the best picture. So just like using the high-speed railway as an example, if government decided to really make that a successful strategy.
So you've been talking about the policy superiority of an autocracy,
Yeah.
that could be the luxury for democracies, because we rule by decree.
Yes.
We cannot use a parallel comparison with the signing executive orders by Donald Trump in the White House. However, up to 19 state-level economic zones have been explored over the past decades. Why have we only been able to have 2 successful examples and pilot programs like Shenzhen and Pudong? A lot of people have debated and discussed why. They draw a lot of comparisons. So, Changhua, what's your take?
I think first we need to celebrate the success of Pudong and the Shenzhen New Area. But in the meantime, look at the others. I think, to be fair, and all the other new areas or special economic zones need to somehow enjoy the journey to explore. There are probably partial successes. If you look at some new areas in the along the coast, if you look at Qingdao, if you look at the Guangzhou, Nansha new area. So but today it might be too early to see how successful down the road they will be. I want to go back to actually the Xiongan. Look at the Xiongan New Area. I think a part of the future success is pretty much set already, because we are literally relocating a lot of resources that have been too much concentrated in Beijing. Now we want to find a new area and make sure they're going to be better utilized. If you look at the expertise, the R&D resources, the industry expertise. So Xiongan today enjoys probably more opportunities, actually, more resources to be successful. So I'm sort of hopeful that after Pudong, Shenzhen, Pu'an will hopefully down the road very soon will be very successful.
I would like to add, actually, there's a little difference than the other 19 districts you mentioned about, because for a district, a new district to be successful, a new area, what are resources nearby? That's crucial. The reason that Shenzhen is successful is because Shenzhen has, between Hong Kong, Guangzhou, and in the Pearl River Delta, one of the very developed area in China. So that Shenzhen made very successful. The reason Shanghai and Pudong successful, because Shanghai relies on the Shanghai, which has 100 years of open port and financial center. So, Xiongan could be successful is because it's really between Beijing and Tianjin.
Don't forget the history of Shanghai. The legacy of colonialism. You cannot demonize all of the
that's
legacy.
I said, 100 years of openness.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think the same is true, that Xiongan can be successful if we really use the resources in Beijing and Tianjin and Hebei. So that, because the reason Hebei and Beijing and Tianjin are 2 big cities that have no room to grow now. And so now with the Xiongan, that can sustain the new development and new growth for Beijing and Tianjin. And that's really can be successful because they had the big city centers to rely on.
You guys have been looking at the positive aspects. What about the bad examples of Caofeidian, which was designated as a pilot program to attract heavy industries, and yet few media coverage focused on Caofeidian. And the new Binhai area of Tianjin is not something we are very proud of at this moment. But at the same time, Xiongan is so close to Tianjin, and yet it's set up as yet another pilot program. What do you think of the overcapacity here? What are the dangers?
I think the difference is like that. Like Caofeidian is really a district, maybe county level, or maybe local municipality level. It was really not a grand plan, and then it was managed by the local officials, which is not really connected to the well plan and well resources, well studied, well researched. So that's a little different. And then I don't think Binhai is a failure, but Binhai is still working on with Tianjin. And TED actually was quite successful. You used to have a Motorola, you have Airbus, you have a lot of industry concentrated there. But I think this Xiongan, if you design at a national level with the determination of the current government, and you see also you got the mayor of party secretary of Shenzhen now moving to look after try and transform the Shenzhen experience. And I think with the determination of the central government, but particularly after 21st century, now with all the modern technology, all the innovation, all the management system, and the new policy coordination. So I think we could give a very good try. And also given the pollution problem that Beijing and the Hebei area has, I mean the determination to make Xiongan a success, it's really was a lot of attention. And just like if we the earthquake we had on Wenchuan, I mean if all the provinces support that, if they put all the resources to do that, They build a beautiful Wenchuan, you know. So I think that's also.
Tangshan is another good example.
Yeah.
It's rebuilt on the ruins of the major earthquake in
So that's a
late
good example.
1970s.
Yeah, if you pay a different attention and a different strategy, and then that's really come out a different outcome. So I think this time we see a very good strategy. But I think that
but look at Shenzhen and Pudong. You have very strong reasons to attract the young, ambitious, brilliant university graduates. Human resources are attracted to go there, but Xiongan, you know, it's one of the biggest wetlands,
yes.
and it's basically nothing.
I've seen a lot of policy breakthrough.
Policy incentives are, of course, very important, right?
I think that's why actually this top-down driven political agenda becomes a very important factor here. As we all know, Beijing, there's too much concentrated in Beijing. If you could have young people living in Beijing, not many of them could afford housing, could afford even buy a car, whatever. It's so crowded.
What
actually.
would be the incentives to attract the young people to work in
Opportunities.
Xiongan? Opportunities.
But on the other
And what
hand,
about affordable houses?
Yeah.
Because the housing prices here in
That
Beijing.
has to be part of that as
you know,
well.
with the speed train, half-hour distance, it was actually a suburb of Beijing, Xiongan. It was not talking about
You mean
hundreds of.
Xiongan would be the New Jersey of
New
New York?
York.
Exactly, you know.
Certain
Instead of
sense.
being a New Yorker,
And it's also close
you
to
go to New
Tianjin.
Jersey.
All within an
larger-
hour distance to three major centers. So it'd be half hour by speed train. That is really an easy place. So this is really with the modern technology, with modern transportation, as with the new policy of this Xiongan. I noticed that President Xi mentioned about international standards and attract international talents in the Xinhua New Area. So if we have make a special talent zone there, and if you give them all the green card there, I'm sure you've got attraction. And
But
also
let's
have
look
some
at
universities.
the political will of those SOEs. Sorry, let's look at the political will of the top business executives of up to 30 SOE. I mean, these guys, up to 30 enterprises, will have to be relocated from Beijing to Xiongan to phase out the non-capital functions. But do you think these guys are ready? Do you think the employees will be moved there screaming and kicking against their will?
And not tomorrow. To be fair,
It takes time.
I think it's going to take time, and by phases there. You and I were talking about witnessing the changes in Beijing. You know, in the 1980s and 90s, whatever. We've gone through the process. We pretty much know things will happen. Things will, because we set a vision direction already. All the resources will be concentrated towards that direction, and things will happen. But it does take time. I want to go back to the overcapacity issue. There is a risk, right? It's not like it's you're definitely going to be successful. There is going to be sort of overcapacity issue. How do we make sure, even though you relocate all the resources to that region, that things will dramatically, or magically will happen? It's going to take a lot of wisdom and intellectual thinking and understanding of the trends, the new industrial revolution, the urbanization, the market trend, whatever, in order to make it successful. So on the surface side, I think it's only the first step with the political will in place, but there's going to be a lot of work to be done.
Harry, we've already Silicon Valley is scattered
Yeah.
throughout the whole country, and yet Beijing is determined to turn Xiongan into yet another Silicon Valley, encouraging the spirit of innovation. What are the policy incentives?
Which I think could be possible, because the reason for that is I remember, in the early 80s, I was in Guangdong when the special economic zone of Shenzhen was being built. There's a flood of the gold rush. Actually, there's young people going there. It was bigly it become attraction of China. So that kind of new zone of new course and also new attractions will have a lot of young people to respond to that. But I particularly like the policy that they mentioned in the report, that they're going to attract international talent. And also, if we have built some international, like One Belt One Road, we can set up a One Belt One Road training center for international students there. We can attract a lot of international talents to come. I think if we really make that into a special international talent zone, and also if we issue a lot of green card in that zone, and for example, in Beijing, you get a green card, you have 500,000. Let's say in Xiongan, you got a 20,000, you get a green card if you're making a salary of annual. That can make a lot of people to come.
Can I just add one thing, actually? Compared to Pudong and Shenzhen, one convenience actually for Xiongan is because it's close. It's about Beijing, close to the Beijing, to the capital center, and this happens to be a place with so many talents and so much resources concentrated here. So it's a sort of convenience. It won't take too much effort to actually say, as long as you build an infrastructure, it's convenient, it's clean, and there are job opportunities there. I think a lot of people, young people in particular, probably would choose issues actually to locate that.
I'm quite impressed that 31 large state OE has responded and answered the call.
Because they are the SOE.
That's the characteristic of China, and that's things that China policy, advantage that really.
Against the backdrop of a high-handed anti-graft campaign, these officials of the SOE got to follow the orders. Now, the last question is why one of the leading editorials of Global Times, which is one of the most influential media players in China, call for emancipation of the mind in building Xiongan. What does that mean, emancipation of the mind, 解放思想? I mean, that's a very popular slogan in the early 1980s.
Exactly. When people built Shenzhen and all the developers put Shenzhen, that was Deng Xiaoping's slogan too. Liberate, reform and open to the outside world. So now we have to take the same spirit when build Shenzhen and Pudong, have open mind. And exactly, so people are a little bit saturated.
That's why Xu Qin, top administrator of Shenzhen, was moved from Guangdong to Hebei to be the governor, to be appointed. I mean, he got to be approved by the legislature.
Yes. I think that's exactly the importance of open the mind, because people are too luxury. Well, in the middle income country now, people are too comfortable, too long to move around. Now it's time, let's call for the spirit of 1980s and the 1990s to build the 21st century Xiongan in China.
I think besides that, I want to emphasize the environmental ecological perspective there as well. Compared to Pudong and Shenzhen, back then we didn't really pay adequate attention to the ecological element. But today we have to. That's probably among the top priority for the top leadership here already. So that's going to be a big difference.
Thank you so much for being part of this meaningful dialogue about the future of Xiongan. With that, we come to the end of this dialogue. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.